Of course, here's a rewritten version of your text. What was supposed to be a joyful day for a young mother-to-be turned into a heartbreaking mystery when 21-year-old Kelsey Schelling vanished in Denver, Colorado. On that day, she had seen her baby for the first time during an ultrasound, filled with excitement and hope for the future, but only hours later, she mysteriously disappeared. Kelsey was known for her vibrant, bubbly personality that drew people in. Her friend and coworker Ally Cox described her as outgoing and personable, someone who lit up every room she entered. Yet beneath her bright exterior, Kelsey had battled mental health challenges, especially after her parents divorced during her teenage years. In the past, she had attempted to take her own life, once 2 years before her disappearance, and again later, when she called Ally for help after overdosing on pills. Ally rushed her to the hospital, and Kelsey began to recover, determined to move forward. At 21, Kelsey learned she was pregnant. Her parents, Doug Schelling and Laura Saxton, immediately offered their full support. On the day she vanished, Kelsey had just seen her 8-week-old baby on a sonogram. That evening, February 4th, 2013, she finished her shift at work at 9:54 p.m. and then disappeared. Investigators initially considered the possibility that Kelsey might have taken her own life, given her history. But her family firmly dismissed this, pointing to her deep love for her unborn child and her recent positive outlook. Colorado Bureau of Investigation agent Kevin Torres reflected on her struggles, saying that's a hard avenue to explore. Like millions of Americans, she battled mental health issues, but she was winning that battle. Laura Saxton recalled her last conversation with her daughter. I told her I would support her any way I could. The whole family would. It was going to be okay. Police searched Kelsey's apartment, but found nothing unusual, leading them to suspect foul play. Laura reached out to Kelsey's off-again boyfriend, Dante Lucas, who was also the father of her unborn child. The two had met in 2010 at Northeastern Junior College, where they began dating. They'd left school after 2 years, but continued their complicated relationship. Dante admitted seeing Kelsey that night, sometime around 2 or 3 a.m., claiming she seemed fine when they parted ways. He speculated that she may have gone to California, where she had previously lived for a brief time before financial difficulties forced her return to Colorado. Detectives explored the possibility of Kelsey traveling to California, but found no evidence to support this theory. As they dug deeper, unsettling details emerged. Ally revealed that about 6 months before Kelsey vanished, she had missed a work shift, later explaining she was too embarrassed to come in because of bruises on her neck. She claimed her father had strangled her, an allegation Doug Schelling denied. Investigators confirmed that Doug had been out of town during the incident, raising the question of who had actually caused her injuries. A week after Kelsey's disappearance, investigators finally caught a break. Surveillance footage showed Kelsey's car driving into a parking lot around noon the day after she went missing. This discovery opened up new leads, as authorities continued their search for answers in the mysterious case of Kelsey Schelling. Would you like me to continue rewriting the next part of the story as well? Kelsey's car was first spotted in a Walmart parking lot in Pueblo, Colorado, a town about 2 hours south of Denver where Dante Lucas was living with his grandmother. Surveillance footage captured an unidentified man getting out of Kelsey's car, walking around the building, and then being picked up by another vehicle. The next morning, that same man returned, got back into Kelsey's car, and drove away. 8 days later, investigators discovered Kelsey's vehicle abandoned in a hospital parking lot. There was no indication that Kelsey had ever entered the hospital. Once again, security footage showed an unidentified man driving her car into the lot. For Kelsey's mother, Laura Saxton, this discovery was devastating. The day they found her car was the day I knew she was gone, Laura said. She was very attached to her things. There's no way she would have just abandoned her car. Soon after, investigators learned that someone had withdrawn $400 from Kelsey's bank account at an ATM in Pueblo the day after she vanished. When they reviewed the ATM footage, the man using her card was immediately recognizable. It was Dante. He was also seen driving her car at the time. Pueblo police arrested Dante for identity theft and brought him in for questioning. However, Dante's account of that night kept shifting. Times he claimed to have met Kelsey around 2 a.m. and at other times closer to midnight. He gave conflicting stories, saying that after meeting up, they either stayed at Walmart, went to his grandmother's house, or even that they visited a hospital where Kelsey supposedly lost the baby. Despite these inconsistencies, investigators could not charge him with Kelsey's disappearance, since Kelsey had previously allowed Dante to use her bank card and car. Prosecutors couldn't pursue the identity theft charges either. With no solid evidence tying him to a crime, Dante was released. Years passed without any arrests. The pain and frustration for Kelsey's family only deepened. "We were all lost," her brother Colby Schelling said. "It's like your heart just sinks into your stomach. You feel completely helpless." For years after Kelsey's disappearance, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation decided to re-examine the case. Every lead kept circling back to Dante, though Kelsey had loved him unconditionally. Friends revealed that Dante did not treat her the same. According to multiple friends, Dante had been emotionally degrading and at times physically violent, once even pushing her during an argument. Agent Kevin Torres noted that their relationship was marked by extreme highs and lows, a textbook example of a volatile and toxic relationship. Further disturbing information came from one of Dante's ex-girlfriends, who told investigators that Dante became visibly anxious whenever Kelsey's case appeared on the news. She also admitted that Dante had confessed to being the person seen on the surveillance footage abandoning Kelsey's car. The major breakthrough came when Agent Torres finally secured a warrant to access Dante's old cell phone. On it, they found the last text messages exchanged between him and Kelsey on the night she vanished, according to the records. Kelsey drove to Pueblo and arrived at the Walmart parking lot at 11:20 p.m. She texted Dante to let him know she was there. He responded, saying he would meet her shortly, but over an hour passed with no sign of him. Finally, at 12:32 a.m., Kelsey sent her final message. "Where are you? I have been here over an hour just waiting." That was the last time anyone heard from her. Agent Torres believes that after that message, Dante met up with Kelsey and led her to his grandmother's house. It was there that a confrontation likely erupted about the pregnancy, ultimately leading Dante to take Kelsey's life. Her mother, Laura, heartbroken, said, "He's a monster. It's bad enough that he couldn't just walk away. Instead, he chose to get rid of Kelsey." Authorities eventually gathered enough evidence to arrest Dante Lucas for Kelsey Schelling's disappearance. In 2017, he was formally charged with first-degree murder. 4 years later, in March 2021, Dante stood trial and was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and is now serving his sentence at the Lyman Correctional Facility in Lincoln County, Colorado, though he appealed his conviction. The Colorado Court of Appeals upheld the verdict in 2024. Tragically, Kelsey's body has never been recovered. Kelsey's mother, Laura, continues to live with unimaginable grief. "I'm never going to recover without getting her back," she said. "I have nowhere to go to take her flowers, to sit and talk to her, to bring balloons on her birthday or visit her during the holidays. I have nothing. Dante took that away from me." Samantha Hopper, in another heartbreaking case. Samantha Hopper vanished in 1998 along with her young daughter, leaving her family without answers for over 2 decades. On September 11, 1998, 19-year-old Samantha returned home from work in Russellville, Arkansas, and asked her mother, Debbie, to babysit her daughters while she planned to attend a concert in Little Rock. Debbie agreed, but could only care for 3-year-old Desiree. Samantha took her younger daughter, 22-month-old Courtney Holt, with her. She reassured her mother that she would be back the next day. However, a friend of Samantha's later revealed that there was no concert. Instead, Samantha had planned to visit her boyfriend in West Memphis, a relationship her mother disapproved of. After dropping Desiree off, Samantha drove away with Courtney in her blue 1989 Ford Tempo. They were never seen again. That very day, Samantha, Courtney, and the car were reported missing, but no trace of them was found for decades. Then, 23 years later, a volunteer search group called Adventures with Purpose, which specializes in solving cold cases, took an interest in Samantha's disappearance. Their dive teams searched several areas around Lake Dardanelle, Arkansas, eventually focusing on the Illinois Bayou near Pleasant View Road. On October 26, 2021, using sonar, the team located a submerged vehicle beneath the West Pleasant View Road bridge, about 8 feet underwater. The vehicle was a blue Ford Tempo, matching the description of Samantha's car, though it was missing a license plate. As it was newly purchased back in 1998, investigators were confident it was the missing vehicle. Inside, divers discovered human remains and a child's car seat. The remains were sent to the Arkansas State Crime Lab for DNA testing, which used samples from Debbie and Desiree to positively identify Samantha and confirm her family's worst fears. Desiree, now an adult, was present when the car was pulled from the water. In a post from Chaos Divers, who assisted in the search, they wrote, "While it was gut-wrenching to see tears stream down their faces as they received the news, it was also incredibly heartwarming to see the smiles and relief, knowing they were finally bringing their loved ones home." The Pope County Sheriff's Office offered condolences, stating they were grateful to have played a role in closing this 23-year-old mystery. Desiree later expressed that, while painful finding, her mother and sister brought much-needed closure. Investigators concluded that the vehicle likely went off the bridge accidentally and ended up submerged. In a statement, Ventures with Purpose shared, Samantha and her 2 babies have now been brought home. Daniel Armentrout, meanwhile, another decades-old mystery was solved thanks to breakthroughs in DNA technology and genetic genealogy. On March 27, 1961, a teenage hitchhiker lost his life in Bibb County, Alabama. The young man, described as having blue eyes and olive skin, was picked up by a driver who later crashed the vehicle through the railing of a bridge, sending it into the Cahaba River. The teenage hitchhiker sadly did not survive, though the driver managed to escape. The two had barely exchanged names before the crash, leaving authorities with little information to identify the boy. What was known was that the boy had experienced a troubled childhood, growing up with divorced parents and enduring a strained relationship with his mother and stepfather. For years, he remained unidentified, one of many John Does with no name or family to claim him. Daniel Armentrout, hitchhiking through Alabama, possibly on his way to California. A young boy's life ended tragically when the car he was riding in crashed through a bridge railing and plunged into the Cahaba River in Bibb County, Alabama, on March 27, 1961. Though his remains were recovered from the river, authorities had no idea who he was or even if anyone was searching for him. The boy stood around 5'6", with light brown hair and blue eyes. Self-made tattoo on his arm, read either RY in love or R+Y in love. Around his neck, he wore a miraculous medal of the Immaculate Conception tied with a piece of cotton twine. In his belongings, authorities found a Timex watch, suitcase full of clothes, and a pack of Pall Mall cigarettes bearing a South Carolina tax stamp, suggesting he had traveled some distance before ending up in Alabama. After 2 weeks of fruitless efforts to identify him, local citizens raised funds for his burial. He was laid to rest at Centerville Memorial Cemetery under a white marble headstone inscribed with the words, "Unknown in life, but recognized in demise." For decades, amateur sleuths and professionals alike kept pursuing the mystery. Identifinders International, an independent forensic investigation agency, pieced together that the boy may have hitched rides with at least 3 different drivers along his route. Some believed he had stayed with relatives in South Carolina and Montevallo, Alabama, while others speculated that he may have been attempting to enlist in the military or might have been a runaway from a prison system. Despite these leads, the case eventually went cold for over 5 decades. In 2016, Bibb County officials were contacted by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who offered funds to exhume the body and apply modern genetic testing. The remains were sent to the Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences in Montgomery, where bone fragments and teeth were collected for DNA profiling at the University of North Texas. Although a mitochondrial DNA profile was built and uploaded to national databases, no matches were found, and the case again stalled for nearly 4 more years. In October 2020, breakthrough came when independent investigator Colleen Fitzpatrick of Identifinders International contacted Bibb County's newly elected coroner, Patrick West, determined to close what was now the oldest missing child case ever to be solved with DNA forensics. Fitzpatrick's group obtained funding through a YouTube channel, Gray Hughes Investigates, which had set up a forensic genealogy fund for Identifinders' use. Despite multiple complications in extracting viable DNA, the team persisted, sending additional samples to a specialized lab in California. Finally, after years of effort, they identified the young man, 15-year-old Daniel Paul Danny Armentrout, born December 28, 1945 in Miami, Florida. Once Danny's identity was confirmed, investigators began the search for surviving relatives. They found Danny's brother, Don Hamilton, now 77 and living in Florida. Don had been serving in the military when Danny ran away and had been unable to locate his younger brother upon returning home. Their older brother David had also run away, remains missing to this day. Don shared the harrowing details of their childhood. Raised in an abusive home, they suffered under an alcoholic stepfather who whipped them with belts and burned their fingers with matches. Food was scarce, and they often went days without eating. Their mother told them she wished they had never been born. Don escaped the abuse by joining the Army at age 17, eventually building a successful 30-year military career, retiring as a sergeant major, marrying his wife in Germany, and raising a family. Yet not a day went by that he didn't wonder what had happened to his brothers. The last time Don saw Danny was during Christmas break in 1960. Just weeks before Danny ran away, they'd spent time together squirrel hunting in the mountains. Near their rural Tennessee home, one of the few joys of their difficult childhood, Danny hadn't mentioned his plans to leave, but Don understood. Staying meant enduring more abuse. Leaving was a desperate attempt at freedom. With Danny finally identified, his gravestone will be amended to bear his full name. "I am sad because I'll never see my brother alive," Don said. "But my heart feels good, because I can finally bless his grave." Coroner West added, "It is truly amazing. I cannot express enough how grateful I am, and how grateful so many others are, that we are finally able to give him back his name. Thank you to everyone who never gave up on him." Michelle Shepardine, another cold case. Justice was finally delivered more than 2 decades after a young woman's terrifying ordeal. On June 8, 1996, Michelle Shepard was kidnapped and sexually assaulted by a man in Wilmington, North Carolina. After the attack, she bravely went to the hospital and reported the assault to the police. Yet despite the investigation, no suspect was arrested, and the case went cold. Michelle, a mother of 2, endured years of uncertainty, waiting for the day her attacker would be held accountable. That day finally came 26 years later, thanks to advances in DNA technology. New testing methods link DNA evidence collected at the time of the assault directly to the perpetrator, finally identifying the man responsible in 2021. After decades of waiting, Michelle received the justice she deserved. The man who had assaulted her was arrested and convicted, providing long overdue closure in a case that had haunted her for nearly her entire adult life. Michelle Shepard, the brutal assault committed against Michelle Shepard, haunted her for decades. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, a long-neglected evidence kit finally led to justice. While reviewing backlogged sexual assault kits, the Wilmington Police Department discovered paperwork identifying Timothy Yanni as a suspect, documentation that had never been digitized or fully processed. For years, limited funding prevented testing of many older kits. However, a 2019 initiative led by North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein allocated $6 million to address the backlog, giving hope to cold cases across the state. With this funding, the Wilmington Police Department was able to test Michelle's kit. A detective was assigned to the case, tracked down Michelle, now living in Raleigh, and reopened the investigation. In November 2021, the U.S. Marshals Carolina's Regional Fugitive Task Force arrested Timothy Ione. The case, however, was far from simple. After 26 years, physical evidence had degraded and memories had faded. This was the first time in New Hanover County that a Y chromosome-based DNA test had been used in court. District Attorney Ben David described the trial as a heavyweight fight. Ione's defense team, led by Public Defender Trip Watson, a former prosecutor in Superior, Court judge spared no effort. They hired private investigators and mounted an aggressive defense over 2 grueling weeks of trial preparation. Ione, a former Port City cab driver, was charged with first-degree sexual assault and kidnapping, who's also a person of interest. In 2 other long unsolved cases, the murders of Allison Jackson Foy and Angela Rothen, in April 2008, the bodies of both women were discovered in woods off Carolina Beach Road. Despite years of investigation, no charges have been filed in either case due to insufficient evidence linking Ione directly. During Ione's trial for Michelle's case, and testified linking him to the decades-old assault, after just over an hour of deliberation, the jury returned a guilty verdict. On December 13, 2022, Ione was sentenced to 433 months for sexual assault and 151 months for kidnapping, to be served consecutively, a total of 48.6 years. At 61 years old, the sentence likely ensures he will spend the rest of his life behind bars. In court, Michelle bravely addressed her attacker and the public, sharing the emotional toll the assault had taken on her life. "I just want everybody to see that even after 26 years, it is so important that you stand up for yourself and speak out," she said. "The district attorney and the police, they will not quit helping you find your justice. You can't quit either. You have to be brave, even if you are terrified," she added. "Timothy Ione may have left me alive that day, but he took my life just the same." Allison Foy's daughter, Courtney Jackson Hicks, attended Ione's sentencing in support of Michelle. She expressed her own hope for justice in her mother's case. "Listening to the testimony, I noticed a lot of similarities. It took the victim 26 years to get the justice she so deserved. We've been waiting 16 years for ours. I just hope that anyone with information comes forward so we too can have our day in court." Authorities continue to urge anyone with information about the murders of Allison Jackson Foy or Angela Rothen to contact the Wilmington Police Department at 910-343-3620